they really were able to, when we were planning together and we talked about, you know, what are you teaching tomorrow, and when can you observe object counting, or when can you observe fine motor development, teachers were able to quickly identify times when they could observe things. The one area where it was a little bit trickier was emotional literacy. And so we looked at this specific situation on a couple of occasions, and then once teachers looked at it, they were able to quickly say, oh, I do that. I do that. I can figure that out. So I wanted to share this one with you so you could see what a situation looks like and what it can be used for. And the situations basically have the same format. One is specific and it looks more like a lesson plan, and one is general and it just highlights some places to look throughout the day to observe that area or that topic on the construct. So this one for emotional literacy provides an opportunity to observe emotional literacy using read aloud. And when teachers saw this during the pilot, it was at the same time that Alexander's No Good, Very Bad Day movie came out. And people immediately made that connection and said, oh, I was going to read that book this week anyway. I'll use that versus on Monday when it rained. But it's very similar. So what's provided at the top of this situation is a section of the construct progression. Not the entire thing, but a section. So there's the understanding, and then a small section of the construct progression where you can select learning targets. And then it provides some general preparation for the teacher. Here's what you might need, and here's a description. And then on the next page, you'll see this is really, that's why it's called a specific situation. It's really specific. It provides, here's what a teacher might say, here's what the children might say. So it's kind of scripted, just so that teachers can look at it and really it paints a picture of what this opportunity might look like and where you might elicit evidence of learning. And what I really think teachers found helpful was the probe section. So here are some suggested probes, and here are some probes to avoid, and they could take these questions and put them right into their lesson plan. And this was also really helpful. It helped with interpreting the evidence. And so some of you have been asking questions about this. How do we know that we've gotten this in the right spot, the correct spot along the learning progression? Sorry about that. So this gives you, what's nice about this, if it says, if you observe this, then this is the spot along the learning progression or the construct progression. If you observe this, then this is where that child falls along the construct progression. That's their learning status. So it gives you several examples. And so it helps with interpreting the evidence. And then it talks about adapting and responding to learning needs. So that's what's provided in the situation, which teachers could look at and use as a guide. Or they could do this exact situation if they'd like. And so again, so Paula's question is, are there specific situations provided for each construct? So there are for most constructs, but they don't lend themselves for all, but they're all for most constructs. And what you're going to see is at the next meeting in April, you're going to get not only a booklet with all of the constructs, but you're also going to get a booklet with all of the situations in them. So you're going to get all of the constructs and all of the situations. So I just wanted to introduce them to you at this meeting so that you would be aware that we have them. And again, you know, the teachers in the pilot didn't need to use them, but you may find them helpful to show teachers, here's as a guide, but they are not required for use at all. What I thought we would do, just so we can get a feel for the difference between these two types of situations that we've developed, is to just put them side by side. There are two that we're looking at today for object counting. One is general and one is specific. So one says counting throughout the day at the top, and one says grab a handful. So you know, if you're looking at them on your computer, you can pull them up side by side. And if you have printed them out, you can lie them side by side. For me, I like to highlight and circle and mark on them. So that's why I have the highlighters there. You know, you guys know this about me. I have a slight office supply addiction. So you might want to just put them so you can see them side by side as we go through, and I'm just going to describe the differences between the two. This actually is an activity in the Facilitator's Guide where you would have teachers look at the two of these and then describe the differences and how they could use them in their classroom. So we're going to see this in the Facilitator's Guide. Heads up for that. So here's what situations are. They're just intentionally planned activities so that teachers will have some guidance and to know when to observe and how to observe, and it gives them some probes to use. And that we have some that are general and some that are specific. And so the general situations, they highlight some opportunities throughout the day that things can be observed. So for example, for counting objects, you might have a morning meeting opportunity where children are counting students around the circle in morning meeting, versus in a specific counting opportunity, they would be it would look more and feel more like a lesson plan where you would have materials and, you know, this is exactly what the teacher might say and what students might do. So it's more setting up a specific opportunity to do an observation for your students. And then for general, it provides a brief illustration maybe of one opportunity versus here's what the teacher might say and what the students might do. But both of them provide, here are some probes that you might use. And teachers found that helpful for the emotional literacy. And then this is the question that you all have been asking, some guidance in finding those finding the learning status on the progression. Okay, so let's do a quick check for understanding. So we've talked a lot about the formative assessment process again today. We walked through it with the vignette, and then I introduced you to some new support tools. So let's just see where we are, and we'll use coffee, tea, and water again. That worked for us during the face-to-face meeting. So type for us in the chat box where you feel like you are. Coffee, tea, or water at this point in our meeting. Okay, thank you for that quick formative assessment of our work together, part of our process, providing watered down tea. You guys have a great sense of humor. I appreciate that about you all. So Sharon just typed into the, was it the question area? Um, so if you're feeling a little unclear, what we'd like to know is any questions that you have. That way we can support you and we can build it into our face-to-face time together as well. Um, and, you know, it's difficult on a webinar um, to support you in the way that we want to. It's because we're all sitting here and yeah, we're all sitting here and it makes it harder. Um, so when we're together in April, we'll work to address your questions to clear things up even more. Oh, so Paula's asking for a definition cheat sheet. That's a great idea. Glossary. I know they've been working to put glossaries in the facilitator's guide, but maybe we can pull some of that and put it on our support wiki as well, or make a handout out of it. Nikki's making a note about that now. Yeah, so a big part of it is just learning the language. And unfortunately, for those who piloted, we've changed the language. We started out with learning progressions, and I know sometimes I still say it wrong. And now we're calling them construct progressions, and we started out calling it best fit, and now we're calling it learning status. And you know, it in an effort to make ourselves clearer and based on feedback from the field and content experts, and you know, we knew we were working in draft, and we continue to make our work better, but that also means that the language changes in an effort to make it stronger and better. So you'll catch me slipping up and saying the wrong thing for sure. So I think it would be helpful for all of us to get that language cleared up. So for the next section of our time together, for the final section of our time together, we're going to be going through the facilitator's guide with a couple of activities. And I'm just going to highlight them for you and show you where the independent activities are so that you can use them as we continue down this path together and trying to make up some of the time. I think you're going to like what you see in the facilitator guide this time. This is going to fold in nicely with some of the work that you've already started, writing observation-based notes, using the construct progressions within the formative assessment process. We went over that together at our last meeting. And then using multiple assessment means, which is the situations. So starting with writing observation-based notes, let's turn to page 18 of the facilitator's guide. I could pull it up for you. That might be easier. I'll get rid of that. I cleaned off my desktop. You should have seen it before the webinar. Okay, so let's go to page 18. I chose this one because it is an independent activity. And what you can do with this is it includes anecdotal note cards and then tips for writing observational notes. It has a handout and then a reflection sheet. So then it gives you specific directions about having teachers reflect on their current practice. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling pretty fast through it. But I thought it was really well done. Oh, thank you, Paula's putting in some examples. And that here it just says, look, here are some tips for writing an observation-based notes. It's a really nice handout. And then there are some note cards that are included that that have teachers writing their own reflection, and then also on a previous page, it goes through pages. I want to take you to it, but I don't want to scroll too quickly. So I'm going to go up here and take you to it. These note cards, teachers can look through and determine whether they're objective or subjective notes. So there are some samples in here which are really nice when you're determining how to write a good observation-based note. I just think that that part was really well done, and I know some of you have been focusing on that in your work. And it, you know, the fact that they can do it independently and really take a look at their own note taking is good. Then the next section, which I know several of you are engaged in now, is using the construct progressions, getting that out to your educators and leaders in your district. And there's an activity on page 29 for that. That's also independent. And it's very similar to what we did together using that reflection template. So let me pull up the guide again. So in this example though, instead of using a vignette, you can show a video clip. I could not show that to you on the webinar because you wouldn't have been able to hear it. But it's on the live binder. There's an example in morning meeting where there's a teacher who is demonstrating pretty much what I described in the vignette, where she's having a student come up and point to words. I like something, and then the student demonstrates their ability to show one-to-one matching with words. And it's a very short video clip, like a minute, minute and a half. And then you're able to map using the formative assessment process and that reflection sheet to the construct progression. And then what you can have teachers do is then link to a collaborative space in order to list their reflections. So I heard Diane talking about Poll Everywhere. I mean, you could do something like Poll Everywhere. You could do Padlet, where they log on and just leave a sticky note of their reflections, something like that. So that, or Google Docs, where they're just going in and leaving, you know, their reflection of the activity. Then the third thing that I wanted to show you was this idea of using multiple assessment means. And this is the activity that we walked through briefly together, where they are comparing the two construct progressions side by side, and then just sharing how they might use them in their classrooms. So I want to take you to that as well, so you can take a quick look. And that is on page 52. And there are some PowerPoint slides that go along with this, and unfortunately there isn't an independent option for this, but I'm sure you all can figure it out. In doing something like Winston-Salem is doing, I wish you could hear from Eva. We're going to have to try back with her in just a few minutes. What they've done is take their PowerPoint and then put a voice thread over it and send it out to folks. So this one has PowerPoint slides with it, like the ones that you saw, comparing general and specific situation. And then it also has a couple of additional slides that show the architect of a general situation, along with the handout, to have the educators talk about what is the situation, how might I use that. So let's take a moment. We've been doing this at each of our meetings just to think about how could I use these items from the Facilitator's Guide in our plan? Where does this fit in the plan? And then please share in the chat box an idea.
Yeah, yeah.
If we call in from that phone.
Yeah,
right
we'll
there.
switch on to telephone.
Yeah, she's asking you to.
Yes. Going to try to call in on.
Hey, you were great. I don't know if it's like.
I can hear her. Eva, I can hear you, and you sound good.
She can help. You can hear us?
I can, and it sounds good.
Well, that's bizarre.
Oh, no.
How can you hear us?
I
can barely hear you, though.
Oh, I can hear you just fine.
Can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Paula can hear you too.
Yes, just keep talking.
Okay, so you want me to keep going? This is my
Yes.
time to share.
Yes. Go for it.
Okay.
Well, you next, right?
Yeah, I think I remember. Okay, so she's going back a bit. Okay,
Oh, yeah,
so
but put your face up.
here in Winston-Salem, we have struggled with our with Mother Nature in our planning. She's messing it up for us. The only thing we've actually gotten to do face-to-face so far is an overview with our principals, our elementary principals, which, as you can imagine, they have lots of questions, but lots of good questions for us to think about. And I saw lots of head nodding in the audience as well. So I think we have laid the groundwork with principals for this. Our next plan was for February 16th to do a day with all of our kindergarten teachers, which we said was about 214. That's got snowed out. So our plan B, I guess, was then to hold 2 afternoon sessions, February 24th and 25th, something like that. And that too got snowed out. So we decided to do a voice thread or narrated PowerPoint with the PowerPoint that we were going to use for these face-to-face sessions. That was tricky. It was the first time I'd ever done a voice thread, but it actually, I think, worked out okay. We just sent the link out yesterday to all kindergarten teachers. Well, it went to principals, curriculum coordinators, and assistant principals to share however they see fit with their teams back at their schools. It's a really quick turnaround time, which is not great, but we know we've got to get this introductory information out to everybody. So we've asked that they facilitate some sort of gathering of their teachers and their administrators and their curriculum coordinators to listen to the PowerPoint. We included a recording sheet that has some prompts, some kind of questions around, you know, the very first thing we started with before we even dug into what formative assessment is and what this KEA is all about was, if you were in charge of the world and you were a kindergarten teacher, what would assessment look like in your classroom? How would you assess what young children know and are able to do? If you were in charge, what would it look like? And so hopefully we'll find some really good feedback from that on the recording sheet. And you know, I took a risk to say the next thing on the PowerPoint slide of, well, I'm sure the things that you talked about could all fall into a formative assessment viewpoint. And so that's kind of how we made the connection between, this is really what we believe should be happening in our kindergarten classrooms, and this is an opportunity to start using formative assessment again and in a really powerful way. So we asked several questions about, so what do you think about this? What are your questions? What do you need to be able to implement this well? What skills do you need? What support do you need? And this was basically just an overview of what K-3 formative assessment is across the state, the purpose of it, what the KEA is about, and that this is what we know, and now we're going to move forward with starting to give you more information, pretty much like what you all have done with us, kind of laying the foundation and then giving us pieces as we go. The next step is for everyone who watches this video and records their reflections. They'll send that information back to me. I'll share that information with the team, and we'll review for their, common themes and questions, and use that to plan whatever staff development comes next. March 16th will be our first face-to-face meeting. Let's hope the snow is done by this afternoon. And what we'll do, we have 7 zones, 8 zones. See, I'm still new. 8 zones, and so the way to bring together this many people at the same time is to do this in these zone areas. So we'll identify some locations where teachers and principals and curriculum coordinators can gather after school, which is not ideal, but it's what we've got right now to work with. We'll gather and do a question and answer session where the team members sitting around the table with me today will facilitate these conversations. We'll answer some of the questions that we got from the feedback, and then whatever other questions come along. The other piece of that day was to give everybody an overview of the constructs, the 3 that we've decided to use here in Forsyth County, which would be the object counting and book and print awareness, as well as fine motor, and let everybody see what the constructs are and just kind of give an overview of them. We have another follow-up zone meeting planned for April, mid-April, where we'll go back and dig in deeper with the constructs and really do some of these things I think that you're showing us today. I think these tools and activities will be really good to do as we dig into what the constructs look like. Our challenge is there's not much time. We've got a lot of folks to train, and face-to-face is always better. And so trying to figure out how to bring kindergarten teachers together between now and August will be tricky, but that's something we really are going to try to figure out. So we know we'll meet sometime in June and then again in August, and if we can figure out where some money could come from to give some stipends to some folks, maybe we could bring teachers together during the summer. But I think today's information has helped with thinking about what those zone meetings should look like. So I think that's it, but we have definitely had to be flexible. So anyway, I think that's it. So thanks for bearing with us as we try to figure out this technology.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you jumping in and sharing when we could hear you well, and you sound perfect. So, so whatever they did worked, and your ideas I think are super helpful for everyone.
Indeed.
Oh, she can't hear me.
Are you still there?
Yeah. Sharon, can you let her know that we heard her?
Oh, I heard that.
Because she can't hear me now.
Oh, there she is. See what happened? Sorry.
I'm going to mute her. So we just have another minute or two left, just another minute left. Any questions for Eva before we close out for the day? I'm going to end us on that wonderful note from Eva. And thinking about being flexible and working together, reaching out to colleagues, and we know it's going to having the time to do this work together is the thing that we're seeking. Let me know what we're going to work on as your regional implementation team before the April meeting. Those great ideas that you shared in the chat box, we're going to compile them and get them to you. Probably be putting them on the support wiki. We'll also go through all of your questions, and any that weren't answered during the webinar today we'll put on the frequently asked questions page. Great idea with the glossary. We'll pull something together for you and make sure that you have the definitions that you need, and we'll sort out the language at our next meeting as well. So we can turn that tea into clearer tea. Who had that lightly brewed tea? And then move to water. And again, I just want to say thank you. I feel so fortunate to be working with you all. And the regional implementation team members, Nikki and Sharon, I feel lucky to be working with such a fantastic team, and so fortunate to be working with all of you in the region. Again, the last meeting, seeing the engagement and how hard you were working, and then having the opportunity to read your plans. You guys are doing phenomenal work, just phenomenal work. And I wanted to make sure that I said that today. April, next meeting, it will not be snowing on April 14th, and we'll meet at the Village Inn. Thank you all, and have a great afternoon as you continue to work together. Please feel free to email any of us. I provided you with our emails on your plans. Have a great afternoon.